6 failures, 7 tests, 1 dream. And today, I can honestly say that failing 6 times was one of the best things that happened to me, because if I had passed on my first attempt, I probably would not have learned the lessons that made me a better driver. And that's exactly what I'm going to share with you today. Not just how I passed my HGV test on the 7th attempt, but also the mistakes I made, the mental battles I fought, and the habits that finally helped me succeed. And trust me, some of the things I discovered surprised me. Stay with me until the end, because I'm going to share the technique I used every single day, even when I was not inside a truck. And I believe that method played a huge role in helping me finally pass. Also, if you are struggling right now, if you failed once, twice, or even more than that, this video is for you. And there is one lesson I learned after 6 failures that many people don't talk about. We'll come back to that later. So let's begin. My dream of becoming an HGV driver. Like many people, I wanted to become an HGV driver because I wanted new opportunities, a better career, and a skill that could provide for my family. I thought the hardest part would be learning to drive the truck, but I quickly discovered that the biggest challenge was not controlling the vehicle. The biggest challenge was controlling my mind. And that became very clear after my first failure. Now, before we go any further, I want to tell you something very important. Passing your test on the first attempt does not automatically mean you're a great driver. And failing several times does not mean you're a bad driver. Driving experience is what creates good drivers. Passing a test simply gives you permission to continue learning. And that lesson became clearer with every failure. But wait until you hear what happened after my 3rd attempt. Because that's when I started changing the way I prepared. And that changed everything. The pain of failing. I remember coming back home after failing. You start asking yourself questions. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe driving isn't for me. Maybe other people are naturally better than me. And the hardest part is seeing other people pass while you keep trying again. But here's what I want you to understand. Everybody's journey is different. Some people pass first time. Some people pass after several attempts. But the destination is the same. And if you're watching this because you've recently failed, don't quit. Because I nearly gave up too. And later in this video, I'll explain why quitting would have been my biggest mistake. Knowing test routes is not enough. One thing I learned is that knowing test routes doesn't guarantee success. Many people focus too much on memorizing roads, but in real life, you won't drive the same route every day. You'll face different roads, different weather, different traffic, and unexpected situations. A good driver doesn't memorize roads. A good driver learns how to think. And this is where many people make mistakes. They prepare for the test, but they don't prepare for real driving. And later, I'll tell you the exercise I practiced every day in my mind that helped me become calmer and more confident. Because honestly, that technique helped me more than memorizing routes. What I started doing differently, after several failures, I stopped focusing only on the test. Instead, I focused on becoming better. I began asking myself questions. What could I improve? How can I become safer? How can I stay calm? And something interesting happened. The pressure started reducing because I stopped chasing perfection. I started chasing improvement. And that's a completely different mindset, but there was something else I was doing every single day, even when I wasn't inside the truck. And most people overlook this. Driving in my mind. Every day I rehearsed, not physically, mentally. I would imagine myself driving. I would picture roundabouts, traffic lights, pedestrian crossings, cyclists, emergency vehicles, lane changes, busy roads, narrow roads, different weather conditions. I would create scenarios in my mind. What if somebody cuts in front of me? What if traffic suddenly stops? What if I miss a sign? What if a pedestrian appears? And I would visualize myself responding calmly over and over again. I wasn't just dreaming, I was training my mind. And later I'll explain why I believe this mental rehearsal became one of the biggest reasons I finally passed. But before that, I want to talk about something that nobody warned me about: the pressure. Because pressure destroys more test attempts than lack of skill. And what I discovered surprised me. Yes, pressure can destroy good drivers. Now, before I continue, I want you to think about something. Have you ever made a silly mistake under pressure, even though you knew exactly what to do? And this is why I want you to stay until later in this video, because one simple change in my mindset completely transformed the way I approached my tests. We'll get to that shortly. Because the truth is, pressure destroys more tests than lack of skill. You can know everything, you can drive well, you can understand the rules. But once fear enters your mind, your judgment changes. You start overthinking, you become stiff, you stop driving naturally. And before you know it, one mistake leads to another. I realized that the examiner wasn't looking for perfection. They were looking for safety. That understanding changed everything. My failures taught me something important. Every failure hurt. Nobody likes failing. Nobody enjoys paying again. Nobody enjoys starting all over again. But every failure taught me something. One failure taught me patience. Another taught me observation. Another taught me how to control nerves. Another taught me humility. And one taught me something I think every HGV driver needs: confidence without arrogance. Because confidence helps you drive. Arrogance makes you careless. And later, I'll explain why experience matters more than passing first time. Because there is a lesson many new drivers don't discover until much later. Passing first time does not automatically make you a good driver. This might surprise some people. Passing first time does not automatically make you a better driver than someone who passed after 6 or 7 attempts. Because becoming a good HGV driver comes with experience. Day after day, night after night, different roads, different weather, different situations. Experience is where real learning happens. I've met drivers who passed first time and still struggled in the real world. And I've met drivers who failed several times but became excellent professionals. So, if you failed, don't compare yourself with anyone. Stay focused on your journey, because one day, nobody will ask you how many attempts it took. They'll only see the professional driver you've become. But there was something else I had to learn, and honestly, this lesson was difficult. I stopped caring about what people thought. People always have opinions. Some people encourage you, others laugh. Some people ask why you haven't passed yet. Others compare you with someone who passed first time. But one day I realized something. This is my journey, not theirs, and I stopped allowing outside voices to determine my future. Because people only see results. They don't see sacrifices. They don't see the stress. They don't see the studying. They don't see the hours spent preparing. And if you're watching this and people are making fun of your failures, don't let them stop you. Because I nearly listened to those voices, and I'm glad I didn't. Because something happened during one of my later attempts that changed my mentality forever. I'll tell you about that in a moment. I learned to stay calm. Instead of thinking, I must pass, I changed my thinking. I told myself, I just need to drive safely. That sounds simple, but it changed everything. Because the pressure reduced, I stopped chasing a perfect drive. I focused on making safe decisions. And guess what? Professional drivers still make mistakes. The important thing is how you manage them safely. Nobody is perfect. The examiner doesn't expect perfection. They expect safety. And understanding that made me more relaxed. But there was another habit I developed which helped me even more. And honestly, I wish someone had taught me this much earlier. I started analyzing everything. Whenever I failed, I didn't just say I failed. I asked myself, why? What happened? What could I improve? What lesson can I take from this? I treated every failure as feedback, not as defeat. Because failure is only permanent when you stop trying. And little by little, I was becoming stronger mentally, without even realizing it. But something funny happened. The more I stopped obsessing about passing, the better I started driving. And there's a reason for that. I stopped rushing. One mistake many learners make is rushing. Rushing observations, rushing decisions, rushing roundabouts, rushing lane changes. But HGV driving isn't about speed, it's about patience. The truck is already big, everything takes time, and I learned to slow down mentally, take information in, observe, think, then act. That simple approach made me more comfortable behind the wheel. And speaking of comfort, I want to share something that helped me outside the truck. Because this exercise cost nothing, but I believe it played a massive role in helping me finally pass. And if you struggle with nerves, this might help you too. The power of visualization. Every day I imagined myself succeeding, not just passing, but driving safely, handling difficult situations calmly, staying focused, making observations, checking mirrors, planning ahead. I imagined rainy days, busy roundabouts, traffic jams, cyclists, pedestrians, everything. I kept rehearsing in my mind, again and again, and when I entered the truck, many situations felt familiar, because I had already driven them mentally. Now, was that the only reason I passed? No, but I believe it helped prepare my mind. And later in this video, I'll tell you about the day everything finally came together. But before we reach that moment, I want to talk about one thing many learners secretly struggle with: fear. Because fear nearly stopped me from trying again. And what I discovered about fear changed my entire journey. Stay with me, because the biggest lesson of all was still ahead. Yes, fear almost made me give up. Now, before I tell you about the turning point, I want to talk about something that many learners don't openly admit. Fear. Not fear of driving, not fear of trucks, fear of failing again. Because after multiple failures, it becomes harder to book another test. Not because you don't want to, but because you start asking yourself, what if I fail again? What will people say? What if I'm wasting my money? What if I'm simply not good enough? I had those thoughts too, and maybe you're having them right now. But something happened that changed my thinking, and this lesson might help someone watching this today. I realized that failure doesn't define you. Failing an HGV test does not define who you are. It doesn't mean you're stupid. It doesn't mean you'll never become a driver. It simply means that on that day, you weren't successful. That's all. Nothing more, nothing less. Life doesn't end because of one failure or 6 failures. Success doesn't belong only to people who pass first time. Success belongs to those who refuse to quit. And later I'll tell you what I said to myself before my final attempt, because those words stayed with me throughout the drive. Every attempt made me better. Looking back now, I realized something. Each failure gave me something. More awareness, more patience, more understanding, more maturity, more experience. And although I didn't enjoy failing, I appreciate the lessons. Because by the time I reached my final attempt, I wasn't the same person who sat the first test. I had grown, not just as a learner, but mentally. And that's important, because driving isn't only physical, it's mental. Professional driving starts with mindset. And that's when I began understanding something many experienced drivers know. There is no end to learning. Passing the test isn't the end. It's the beginning. Because even today, experienced drivers continue learning. Roads change, conditions change, technology changes. Every journey teaches you something. The best drivers are not those who think they know everything. The best drivers are those who keep learning. And this is why I always tell people, stay humble, because overconfidence can become dangerous. And speaking about danger, there is one mistake that many learners make before tests. I made it too, and I wish I had understood this much earlier. Stop comparing yourself with other people. Social media can be dangerous. You see someone saying, I passed first time. Another says, I only needed 1 lesson. Someone else says, it was easy. And suddenly, you feel like you're behind. But you're not. Everybody learns differently. Everybody handles pressure differently. Everybody's journey is different. Some people learn quickly, others need more time. Neither one is better. The destination is the same. And remember this: years later, nobody asks, "Did you pass first time?" People care whether you're a safe and professional driver. That's what matters. But there was something else that really helped me, and honestly, it had nothing to do with knowing the routes. I learned to think like a driver. Instead of thinking like someone taking a test, I started thinking like a professional driver. That changed everything, because I stopped asking, "How do I pass?" and started asking, "What would a safe driver do?" At roundabouts, at junctions, on dual carriageways, in traffic, in bad weather, at night. I focused on driving safely, not impressing anyone. And strangely enough, the more I focused on safety, the more natural everything became. But there was one day that changed my confidence completely, and I'll explain what happened. The day I started trusting myself. One day during practice, something clicked. I realized that I actually knew what I was doing. I had spent so much time doubting myself that I forgot how much I had learned. And maybe someone watching this needs to hear that. You've learned more than you think. You've improved more than you realize. You've come further than you give yourself credit for. Sometimes the biggest enemy isn't lack of skill, it's lack of belief. And that belief became very important before my final attempt. Because this time, I wasn't desperate. I wasn't trying to force success. I simply wanted to drive safely. And what happened next surprised even me. I changed my inner conversation. Instead of saying, "Don't fail," I started saying, "Stay calm." Instead of saying, "Don't make mistakes," I said, "Drive safely." Instead of thinking, "This is my last chance," I thought, "This is another opportunity." Those small changes made a huge difference, because your mind listens to what you repeatedly tell yourself. And slowly, my confidence became stronger. Not arrogance, confidence. There's a difference. And then came the day of my 7th attempt, the day that changed everything. But before I tell you what happened that day, I want to share the biggest lesson I learned after 6 failures. Because this lesson applies not only to HGV driving, but to life itself. And trust me, this lesson is powerful. Stay with me, because the story gets even better. The biggest lesson I learned after 6 failures. If there is one lesson I want you to take from this video, it is this: never let temporary setbacks convince you to abandon a permanent dream. Because there were moments when I wanted to stop. Moments when I questioned myself. Moments when I thought maybe HGV driving wasn't meant for me. But looking back now, I'm grateful I kept going. Because sometimes success comes one attempt later, one lesson later, one adjustment later, one day later. And you never know how close you are when you're thinking about quitting. That's why I want you to stay with me. Because I'm about to tell you what happened on my 7th attempt. And the mindset I carried into that test was completely different from my first attempt. The morning of the 7th attempt. This time felt different. Not because I suddenly became a perfect driver. Not because I knew every road. Not because I had some secret trick. It felt different because I was different. I had matured. I had learned. I had become calmer. And most importantly, I had stopped putting enormous pressure on myself. I wasn't chasing perfection. I wasn't thinking about the previous failures. I wasn't thinking about what people would say. I simply wanted to drive safely. And I remember telling myself something simple. Just drive one moment at a time. That sentence stayed with me. And honestly, I believe it helped me more than anything else. But something interesting happened during that drive. Something I didn't expect. I stopped thinking about passing. Funny enough, I wasn't thinking about the result. I was focused on the road, focused on planning, focused on observations, focused on safety. And when your attention is on the present moment, you don't leave much space for fear. That's something many learners can benefit from. Stay in the moment. Don't think about the end. Just deal with what's in front of you. One junction at a time, one roundabout at a time, one decision at a time, and suddenly things become easier. But there was another thing that made a huge difference. I trusted my training. At some point, I realized I've practiced, I've learned, I've prepared. Now it's time to trust myself. Because overthinking can destroy confidence. And confidence doesn't mean believing you'll never make mistakes. Confidence means believing you can handle situations safely. That was the difference. And that's something experience had taught me, because after 6 failures, I had learned many lessons. And I was about to discover that none of those failures had been wasted. The moment I heard the result. Now, before I tell you exactly how I felt, I want you to think about this. Imagine carrying disappointment 6 times. Imagine starting again 6 times. Imagine refusing to quit 6 times. Then, imagine finally hearing those words. You've passed. Honestly, it's difficult to describe. Relief, joy, gratitude, happiness. Everything came at once. Not because passing made me special, but because I knew how much effort had gone into reaching that moment. And one thing became clear. Every failure had been worth it. Because the person who passed on the 7th attempt was stronger than the person who started on the 1st attempt. And there was another lesson I discovered immediately after passing. One that many new drivers don't realize. Passing is only the beginning. The license is not the finish line. It's the starting line. Because now comes the real learning. Real roads, real traffic, real pressure, real responsibilities, different loads, different customers, different weather, different situations. That's where experience begins. And this is why I say again, passing first time doesn't automatically make someone a better driver. Real experience creates great drivers. Some of the safest drivers on the road today probably made mistakes when they were beginners, because everyone starts somewhere. And speaking about beginnings, I want to share what I wish someone had told me before I ever started this journey. Because if you're preparing for your HGV test right now, this advice might save you a lot of stress. What I wish someone had told me: take your time. Don't compare yourself. Don't rush. Don't fear mistakes. Learn from every lesson. Focus on safety. Trust the process. And never let one bad day define your future. Because one day you might look back and realize that the failures were preparing you for success, just like they prepared me. And before we finish, there is one final message I want to give to anyone who has recently failed their test. Because if that's you, these next few minutes are especially for you. Stay with me, because this message comes from someone who understands exactly how you're feeling.
To everyone who has just failed, if you've just failed your HGV test, I want to speak directly to you, not as an expert, not as someone who passed first time, but as someone who knows exactly how it feels. I know what it's like, driving back home disappointed. I know what it's like, questioning yourself. I know what it's like seeing others pass while you're preparing for another attempt. And I know what it's like wondering if you'll ever get there, because I lived it 6 times. And if you're feeling discouraged right now, keep watching, because there is one thing I discovered that changed my life, and I hope it changes yours too. Failure is feedback. One thing I eventually understood was this: failure is feedback. It tells you where to improve. It highlights weaknesses. It teaches patience. It teaches humility. And sometimes it teaches lessons that success never teaches. When I failed, I stopped asking, why me? And started asking, what can I learn from this? That simple change made all the difference, because I stopped seeing failure as the end. I started seeing it as preparation. And honestly, I think that's why I was mentally stronger on the seventh attempt. But there was another lesson that surprised me. Your mind is your most important tool. People spend hours learning gears, hours learning mirrors, hours learning maneuvers, but many people forget to train their minds. Fear, pressure, stress, doubt, overthinking. These things can affect even good drivers. And that's why I spent so much time mentally rehearsing. I would imagine different situations: heavy rain, traffic jams, roadworks, cyclists, pedestrians, lane closures, emergency vehicles, busy roundabouts. And in my mind, I would practice staying calm, not rushing, not panicking, thinking ahead, because driving starts in the mind, and that habit helped me tremendously. But here's something important. Mental rehearsal is not magic. It's preparation. And preparation builds confidence. Which brings me to another important lesson. Don't try to be perfect. Perfection doesn't exist. Not even experienced drivers are perfect. Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is making safe decisions, learning from errors, staying focused, remaining humble, and continuing to improve. Because driving is a skill you keep developing throughout your career. And if you're chasing perfection, you'll only create unnecessary pressure. Focus on progress instead. And speaking of progress, something happened after I passed that taught me another important lesson. Passing didn't change who I was. Passing felt amazing, but I quickly realized something. I wasn't suddenly a perfect driver. I was still learning, still gaining experience, still improving. The license gave me the opportunity to begin my professional journey. And that's why I always say, respect the truck, respect the road, respect the responsibility. Because HGV driving is not just about earning money. It's about safety. It's about professionalism. It's about protecting yourself and others. And experience will teach you things no test can, which is why I believe humility is one of the greatest qualities a driver can have. But before we finish this story, I want to share something that happened after I passed. Because one question people often ask me is this: were the 6 failures worth it? And my answer surprises many people. Yes, they were worth it. If I had passed on the first attempt, maybe I would never have learned patience. Maybe I would never have developed resilience. Maybe I would never have appreciated the journey. Maybe I would never have understood the importance of mindset. Maybe I would never have built the habits that helped me later. Those failures shaped me. They forced me to grow. And growth sometimes comes disguised as disappointment. Looking back now, I don't regret continuing, because every setback was teaching me something. And that's why I want you to stay with me for the final part of this video, because I want to leave you with the exact advice I would give my younger self before taking that first HGV test. And if you're currently preparing for yours, this may be the most important section of the entire video. Stay with me, because we're almost at the end, and I have one final message for every future HGV driver watching this. If I could speak to myself before the first test, if I could go back and speak to myself before that first HGV test, I wouldn't talk about passing. I wouldn't talk about the number of attempts. I wouldn't talk about what other people think. I would simply say this: relax, learn, trust the process, and never give up. Because one day, you'll realize that every lesson, every setback, and every disappointment was preparing you for something bitter. And if you're still watching this, I want you to stay with me, because this final message might be exactly what someone needs to hear today. Don't quit too early. Sometimes we give up too soon, not because we can't do it, but because we're tired, discouraged, embarrassed, or afraid of failing again. But success often comes after moments when people feel like quitting. And I nearly quit, more than once. There were times I thought maybe I wasn't good enough. Times I questioned whether all the effort was worth it. But imagine if I had stopped after the first failure, or after the second, or the sixth. I would never have experienced the joy of finally achieving my goal. And that's why I want to tell you this. Don't let temporary setbacks destroy long-term dreams, because you may be much closer than you think. Your journey is your journey. Never compare yourself to anyone else. Someone may pass first time, someone else may pass after several attempts. Neither story is better, because at the end of the day, what matters is becoming a safe and professional driver. Nobody asks experienced drivers how many attempts they needed. People judge you by your professionalism, by your attitude, by your safety, by your experience. That's what matters. And experience only comes with time. Which brings me to one of the biggest myths. Passing first time doesn't make you the best driver. I know people who passed first time and still had much to learn. I know people who failed several times and became excellent drivers. Because passing a test and becoming a professional are two different things. Experience teaches you things no examiner can. Night driving, rain, fog, busy motorways, tight deliveries, unexpected situations, long hours, different vehicles, different loads. That's where the real learning begins. And if you're already driving professionally, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Because every day is another lesson. The power of mental rehearsal. Looking back, one thing I truly believe helped me was driving in my mind. I constantly imagined situations, roundabouts, traffic lights, cyclists, roadworks, lane changes, busy junctions, pedestrian crossings, bad weather. And in my mind, I would always imagine myself staying calm, making observations, planning ahead, driving safely. That habit helped me develop confidence. Not overconfidence, confidence. And confidence makes a huge difference behind the wheel. But there was one thing even more powerful than confidence. Persistence changed my story. Talent didn't change my story. Persistence did. Perfection didn't change my story. Persistence did. Knowing routes didn't change my story. Persistence did. Because knowing the test routes does not guarantee success. In the real world, roads are different every day. Conditions change, traffic changes, weather changes. A professional driver learns how to think and adapt, and adaptation comes with experience. That's why I never want anyone to believe that failing means they are finished, because I am living proof that persistence works. 6 failures, 7 attempts, 1 pass, 1 dream achieved, and hopefully 1 story that encourages somebody else not to give up. Final message to every future HGV driver. If you failed recently, keep going. If you're preparing for your first test, stay calm. If you're nervous, trust your training. If you're struggling, don't compare yourself. If you're successful, stay humble. And if you're already driving professionally, never stop learning. Because becoming a great driver is a journey, not an event. And before I finish, I want to thank every single one of you who stayed with me throughout this story. If my experience has helped you, inspired you, or encouraged you not to give up, then please do me a favor. Hit the like button, subscribe or follow to the channel, GED's Truckside. Share this video with someone who is preparing for their HGV test, or someone who has recently failed and needs encouragement, because you never know whose life one message can change. And if you want even more stories, behind-the-scenes experiences, and more lessons from the road, make sure you follow or subscribe on this channel, GED's Truckside, where we share real experiences from the trucking world. Thank you for watching. Remember this, it doesn't matter how many times you fall. What matters is how many times you get back up. Drive safely, stay humble, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next video. This is GED's Truckside. For now, take care, subscribe, like, share, and see you on our next episode.